Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. An executive order now makes it illegal to enter Entrenchment Creek Park. News Edge reporter Christopher King tells us the disturbing items that authorities discovered.
The DeKalb County CEO signed an executive order. It makes it illegal to go into Entrenchment Creek Park. The CEO says police found booby traps inside there, which he says are a hazard to the public.
Have to work meticulously and strategically to remove that car that went down the embankment. Family and friends say the 31-year-old was simply trying to sell a car. South Bend Park on a Friday is usually bustling with families, but crime scene tape and police lights tell a different story. Atlanta police blocked off the massive scene after they say someone was shot and killed.
I'm in shock. I mean, I want to mourn, but I feel like I shouldn't mourn because I just saw him.
Lamont Adrian says his best friend, Owen Jackson, came to the park to sell a car when things took a turn.
Like they tried to steal his car, and I guess they didn't steal his car, but they shot him. He had an SRT Jeep that was pretty cool. I kind of helped him build it, put it together. Yeah, we built a few cars together.
One car down an embankment and overturned. Another car found a short distance away. Family and friends say Jackson just celebrated his 31st birthday last month and an anniversary with his girlfriend last night.
We worked on tons of cars together. He lived with me. We hung out like every day.
Many in the community raced to the scene, still grappling with the mid-afternoon violence.
He was a good person. That he tried really hard to be a good person. Never in a million years did I think that this is how he would have went out.
As police work to figure out just what happened, family and friends hope justice will come swiftly as there's no word on any suspects or an arrest.
I could have never imagined going to my best friend's funeral.
If you know anything that might be able to help police in this investigation come forward, of course, you can remain anonymous. In Atlanta, I'm Eric Perry, Fox 5 News.
Center. Investigators say they've discovered even more victims than originally known. The facility is meant to be a safe haven for abused, neglected, and abandoned children. Police say 21-year-old Caleb Randolph had inappropriate sexual contact with at least 3 children at the Rainbow House in Jonesboro. Investigators say the center's executive director, Randolph's mom, tried to cover it up. According to authorities, at least 2 other employees failed to report what they knew.
We found that their behavior was criminal, greed, unprofessional, negligent, and not in the best interest of the juveniles. It was like watching a Netflix series unfold right before our eyes.
Detectives launched their investigation after an anonymous tip. They ask any other victims to come forward. The DeKalb County CEO at the Hidden Hills Apartments on Bedivere Circle in Decatur. Police say Chris Jackson shot and killed 40-year-old Tavares Thomas. Jackson will be booked into the DeKalb County Jail. Once he gets out of the hospital, he was injured when a canine helped capture him. A news alert in Stone Mountain. Video captured 2 armed men ransacking a home, including a child's bedroom. It happened on North Land's End on Tuesday. The single mother watched the burglary happen in real time while she was at work. Thankfully, nobody was at home at the time. Her 8-year-old son was in school. She says the man got away with an estimated $5,000 worth of belongings.
Everything out of his room was gone, and his bed was moved and the dressers were moved.
What of value was there? Are we talking finances?
Like Xboxes. My son's a gamer, so he had the Xbox, the PlayStation, the VR headset, all the stuff he got for Christmas this year is just gone.
The mom and son are staying with a friend now. They don't feel safe in their own home. If you recognize these men, call the Cobb Police. In Cobb County, authorities at the Pines at West Cobb Apartments on Wednesday. Police found them with several gunshot wounds outside a unit on Hamilton Road. Nash is currently being held at the Floyd County Jail. Baton Rouge police arrested and charged a second person in connection to a Covington man's death. Authorities say a tip led them to Tiffany Ann Guidry, only a mile south of where Nathan Millard was staying. Millard was found wrapped in a rug and plastic while on a business trip earlier this month. Police charged Guidry with unlawful disposal of human remains, failure to seek assistance, and prostitution. They're still looking for a second woman identified as Tabitha Barner. She's wanted on similar charges. Well, there is renewed debate over whether schools should have a police presence on campus. It comes in the wake of this week's shooting at a Denver high school. Denver's school board removed safety officers from all campuses back in 2020. In Nevada, lawmakers are pushing to repeal a 2019
and hectic school board meetings. The measure now heads to the Democrat-controlled Senate, though, where it's unlikely to pass. Speaking of schools, the nation's second-largest district reached a deal Friday to give pay raises to bus drivers, custodians, and other support staff after a three-day strike that kept students at home. The deal includes a series of retroactive raises going back to 2021, as well as pay bumps this coming July and January, that will collectively hike worker pay by about 30%. The deal also sets the district's minimum wage at $22.52, provides a one-time $1,000 raise for any worker who was employed in 2020, and creates a $3 million development fund. Free health care will also be provided for any employee working at least 4 hours a day and their families. Both sides, Governor Andy Beshear maintained the bill will bring about too much government interference in personal issues, adding that it could boost youth suicides. But the measure easily passed the GOP-dominated legislature with a veto-proof margin, and lawmakers could vote to override it.
Jazz story, or have, your drag queens come in and read the jazz story if you want to. Or you could just quietly read books. You don't even bring attention to them. If you're writing a math sheet, write a math sheet and put a picture of someone on there who's like, a non-binary, maybe looking kind of person.
That's Michael Smith, a world languages teacher of Long Island, one of Assistant Superintendent David Casamento's teachers who works in the East Meadow School District.
I decide to come in with makeup and bigger shoulder pads. Am I really doing drag? Am I just being me? Where does the line fall? So I think that introduction of it really be as simple as saying, hey, we're going to read a book from Dr. Seuss, and here's a quote from Martin Luther King, and here's a quote from RuPaul, and just having little kind of drops of exposure to somebody's upbringing. I mean, that's what settles into our psyche as what normalcy is, right? More exposure. And people that have extreme culture shock or people that are isolated and aren't exposed to somebody who's different. You grow up in New York, you walk down the street, you see 74 different kinds of people all the time.
I remember the first time I went swimming after my top surgery. It was awesome. I never swam before that. I never went to the beach. So there's things I would choose to not do in navigating my situation so that it felt most comfortable to me. And I was working very physical jobs at that time. I spent about 6 years saving up for my top surgery because it wasn't covered by health insurance back then. And finding and working physical jobs, saving money, traveling for surgery. I traveled to San Francisco, and there were a lot of barriers at the time, which is why I'm so grateful with Northwell Health and the development of health systems on Long Island. It's so encouraging to see the change that we're kind of in the middle of that change. We're in that period of history where things are progressing.
And so one of the courses that I was teaching was reaching out to our gay and transgender students. And these kids just coming up to me, I just want to share with you that I identify as trans, and I really prefer this. Please don't tell home. And I didn't realize how many kids were like this. So those are the subtle things that I think make the ripples that make waves. Because that was the class that I was like, let's watch some drag, let's talk about it, let's have fun. But the people that do teach it's great. It's Teacher Education Institute, and they have reaching out to our gay transgender students. It's affordable, pretty normal mothers as well. So if somebody's really indifferent about their identity, where they are, and growing up,
What's really interesting is this is all filmed in New York, mostly in Long Island, and these are educators throughout the state. As you can imagine, this is probably happening across the country, and they really just gather, right, to share ideas. And when you imagine that they're going to share ideas about how they're going to teach kids math or reading or writing, no, they're there teaching kids DEI. They're teaching kids that they can be any gender they want. But what's most telling and most revealing of all this, Larry, is that they don't want the parents to find out. Right. Because they know that parents care about their kids more than anything else. And what we've seen as a result of our videos coming out, you see that these parents go to these school board meetings that demand accountability, And one of the educators we exposed in Long Island has been so far reassigned. He's an assistant superintendent. He was reassigned so far, so there's been a lot of fallout as a result of our videos in the Long Island area.
What happened? Did the school issue a statement saying we're not doing this? Did they acknowledge it? What did the school say?
So it depends. There's several schools involved here. So in one of the cases, they admit, we're doing DEI and it's important to have inclusivity and diversity and we value these things. But then they kind of approached the more controversial topics as well. One of them was, for example, hiring discrimination. So, we have to investigate this, right? So they don't outright call out the issue. They'll say they'll look into it, right? But as you can imagine, parents aren't taking that as, I fully trust that you will look into it. So there's more to come from parents. They're still putting pressure on these school boards, specifically the superintendents, to demand answers. But we've seen so many reactions, so many people message Project Veritas saying, I'm in Long Island. Thank you for exposing this. I didn't even know this was happening in my district.
Now, Mario, is it me or is there some sort of issue that I don't know about regarding kids not knowing their gender, regarding kids who believe that they're trans? I grew up in the 60s and I can't recall a single issue, a single kid, to my knowledge, where this was an issue. Is this a thing?
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty mind-boggling. I went to school in the early 2000s. I also don't recall that being a thing. It seems that it's come out more recently in the last 5 to 10 years. But it looks from these videos that these teachers are really forcing this upon kids. One of the people you played there, she literally said, "This is our time to shine. Elementary educators, let's get rid of the binary. Let's get rid of boys and girls." I mean, that was probably the most overt thing I've ever heard. What does that mean? We're going to get rid of boys and girls. And why do you seek to do that? Like, what is the point of getting rid of boys and girls?
That's what I was going to say next. What's the end game? Why?
Right. So, I mean, it's I think the video kind of speaks for itself. It's very clear that these educators have a political objective. They obviously are on one side of the spectrum and probably on the very far end of that spectrum, right? So as you saw, she has these LGBT trans flags in her classroom. She says that, which another very telling moment, her tenure allows her to do these things, right? It says, I'm going to my advice to young educators is get some years on the books and then you can move on, right? Let's do this quietly and slowly. So there's a whole process, a plan, and most certainly it appears that they want these kids not only to change their gender, but most likely change their politics. So when they're grown, they will be pushing the same type of agenda on the next generation.
Northwest Georgia right now. Good evening. I'm Christine Spiro. Chief Meteorologist David Shanley joins us now to tell us when that bad weather, David, will be rolling in.
Well, Christine, it looks like it's going to be several hours from now, more like towards early tomorrow morning. We'll set the stage for you right now, show you how warm it is out there with that southerly wind. Here we are at 11 o'clock at night. We're in the upper 60s and low 70s. That's above the average high temperature this time of year. So, yeah, we're certainly going to have enough juice in the atmosphere to support a few showers and storms. Fox 5 Live Viper is quiet in our area. Notice the red showing up on the map. That is a tornado watch that comes right to our northwest border there for these storms here in northern Mississippi. Now, they are racing off to the northeast, probably clip parts there of northwestern Alabama, and we've had a couple active tornado warnings going on there in the state of Mississippi, and that is certainly a potent environment, but a whole lot different environment here as far as supporting storms like that. But I think we will see storms capable of some damaging winds in here early tomorrow morning. There comes the line kind of knocking on the door at 3 a.m. in extreme northwest Georgia. Our area kind of gets into the act by 5, 6 o'clock in the morning. You see that line right there. The line is going to be pretty intense, but weakening as it makes its way into the metro area along around 7 a.m. And by the time we get to mid-morning, it kind of presses all the way through. We start seeing breaks in the clouds by later in the morning and the afternoon. Looks just fantastic across our area for outdoor activities. Hit and miss, 1 or 2 thunderstorms, but for the most part, sunshine for all of us. All right, here we
you can actually apply for MAID for essentially financial reasons is what it comes down to. There was just a viral case of this 54-year-old man who was approved for MAID because he was about to be evicted. He's on disability. He can't pay his rent. It's a 7-year wait list for affordable housing. And he decided rather be evicted into the Canadian winter. He'd rather die this way. And someone saw the story, he started a GoFundMe, and now he's in his home and he's happy and never wanted to die.
Yeah, absolutely. For my story, I spoke to a number of people in that very situation where they just couldn't afford to live anymore. They were on disability support. Disability support only covers you to a certain extent. I think something like $1,100 or something. You can't make ends meet with that kind of money. There are people literally applying for MAID in Canada because they can't afford. They face a financial shortfall of $200 a month. The people are just gravitating to MAID as an option to get out of their circumstances. But here's the thing. I mean, the MAID has actually witnessed a huge growth in Canada since it became legal. So, according to a Health Canada report, there's been a 33% increase in MAID deaths in 2021 compared to 2020. And that is about 3.3% of all deaths.
Your state is in a unique legal situation because of a 2009 Montana Supreme Court ruling, Baxter v. Montana. Can you explain to us what that case was and why it has left things in such a problematic state?
Sure. So the Baxter case is unique because he actually wanted as his physician to assist him in suicide. And so he went to the court to get that done. And in the Supreme Court ruling, what they stated, they didn't completely make it legal, but what they said was that you can raise as a defense for homicide consent. So if a physician were to get prosecuted for assisting someone in suicide, they could raise, their defense could say, well, he was granted consent by the person who the deceased, and they could use that as their defense in the trial. It would be a homicide trial. And so it's still illegal. And that's a lot of the confusion, because they didn't just come right out and say that this process should be legal. What they said was that, very nuanced, you could raise this as a defense. And so proponents of the practice have said that it's legal in the state of Montana. I contend, and even one of the justices that ruled on the case contends, that it is not clear-cut for sure, and that anybody who is doing this process, they're taking their license in their hands and putting their career at risk.
Has the ruling ever
served as the deputy drug czar under President Bill Clinton? California has been trying to pass stricter laws to deal with fentanyl, but the bill died in the Public Safety Committee over the past couple of years.
The purpose is to keep other people from dying. And young people sometimes think they're immortal. They think, oh, one pill's not going to hurt me. Well, one pill can kill you. There's not a community in California that's not impacted by fentanyl right now.
I'm Siamai Kurami. Welcome to California Insider. Tom, it's great to have you on. Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm pleased to be here. We have a lot of important subjects to discuss.
Yeah, we want to talk to you about fentanyl, and we've been covering homelessness a lot on this show, and a lot of our guests have been telling us that fentanyl is now a big cause of people in the street overdosing, dying. Can you tell us more about what's going on with fentanyl?
Sure. Well, you're right. Fentanyl affects everyone. And sometimes folks who become addicted to certain substances, they become homeless. And so, or homeless people, in order to relieve their situation, may take something like oxycodone or some other painkiller that actually is laced with fentanyl. But here in Orange County and all around California, fentanyl doesn't particularly impact one demographic necessarily. It is the largest killer. Fentanyl right now is the largest killer of individuals between the ages of 18 and 45. It exceeds car accidents, it exceeds all other sources, all of the causes of death.
How does that happen? Do people want to get into it, or how do people?
The reason for the large number of deaths is that often certain drugs, methamphetamine, oxycodone, other things, are laced with fentanyl. And the user doesn't want to kill themselves. They just don't know that fentanyl is incorporated into the drug. and as a consequence, they'll take it. And fentanyl is very, very, very powerful. It's 100 times more powerful, for example, than morphine. And so just taking one pill can kill you. And young people sometimes think they're immortal. They think, oh, one pill is not going to hurt me. Well, one pill can kill you.
Now, do the dealers not tell them? How does that happen?
I think it's all sorts of things. I think sometimes the dealers don't know. Sometimes the dealers do know and don't care. The manufacturer may cut in fentanyl, may include fentanyl in the drug because it's not expensive to make and it is very, very, very potent. And so there's a variety of issues that surround fentanyl distribution.
Can you explain to us how does all this work? So, you have the drug dealers, some of them not know it, some of them may know it. And how does this whole process work?
Fentanyl can be manufactured almost anywhere. I just talked to the mayor of San Francisco yesterday, told me that fentanyl is being manufactured in her city. Most of the fentanyl here coming in the United States right now is manufactured in Mexico. It's not that expensive to make. You can get a pill making machine and you have someone who's somewhat sophisticated in chemistry and they can put together either a fentanyl pill or a pill that someone thinks is, for example, methamphetamine that is laced or cut with fentanyl. And it comes across the border, or it can be manufactured here, but lots of it comes in the United States, either through or around the border, and then it's distributed here. It's distributed in the same way that other drugs have been distributed, but the difference is that it's not like marijuana. Marijuana, takes a large, it's large in terms of volume. Fentanyl is very, very small, very, very small. So it's much easier to import in the United States.
So it's essentially, it seems like it's easier to make, it's cheaper, and it's easier to transport.
Right, and that's why it is such a difficult drug to get a hold of in terms of law enforcement, such a difficult drug to cut the supply. Law enforcement has a difficult time tracking down both the suppliers as well as the distributors. So,
this episode is sponsored by Birch Gold.